locality is the easiest explanation. Like, a piece of matter is affected up to 1,000 miles away over here. And I think since our minds are matter,
right,
then we'll be able more efficiently communicate in a sort of quantum way.
Right. Well, I mean, we should mention that there is an actual, astronomical relationship that we are entering into with the center of the galaxy. We've already actually entered it, because it's sort of like, the galaxy isn't just a straight plane, it's actually pretty thick. The galactic equator, that is. So we're already there. 2012 is maybe, somewhere in the middle of this passage of our solar system through the galactic equator.
Yeah.
So there is energy
we don't know.
that we're receiving that we weren't receiving, 15 or 20 years ago, right?
Extremely right, and I think the period from the harmonic convergence of 1987, the 25-year period from 87 to 2012, Jose Arguelles said himself, it's a year of cleansing, when Quetzalcoatl, the serpent, bites its own tail to release its poison to save itself. Right. So this is a time for us to just sort of not see it as some new age hippie thing, but actually pertaining to our, genetic makeup. Like, the times do affect our body, right. And that's why it's weird.
Well, I think my perspective on 2012 is, I take it seriously for this reason, because it's a cultural phenomenon and it's a meme that's spreading like wildfire and can't be contained. There's a movie that's coming out in a couple more months that's, I don't know how good it will be, but
yeah,
it's permeated the culture all the way to the, from the popular to the conspiracy level. It's all throughout our society.
Yeah.
And there's whole, book racks now at Barnes & Noble just devoted to 2012.
I got most of them.
Right.
But
so as a cultural phenomenon, it's obviously real in that respect. I think it's happened before that. There have been these sort of upheavals where everyone thought the world was going to end and Christ was going to return and so forth, but it didn't seem to pan out.
Yeah.
But
Y2K was strictly digital. It had nothing to do with like the Mayans or actual cultures with shamanistic, contributions to the world. Y2K and all that stuff was just computer switched to zero.
It was a false apocalypse, huh?
But
this is gonna be the real one, though.
Yeah. No, the apocalypse in Latin translates as rebirth. So
right.
That's what Daniel Pinchbeck was introducing me. And the film 2012, I think, is going to make people even more skeptical. Because first of all, I don't think there's going to be a huge flood. Not going to be a huge flood. Even if there is something, God or whatever wouldn't waste his time to kill us off at a time of huge awakening such as this.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a psychological flood, though, you could say, right?
Psychological apocalypse for sure.
A washing away of old concepts and habits.
God, yes. And I think Nietzsche was... One of my more controversial beliefs is that Nietzsche was the return of the 1844 Messiah, which William Miller predicted only 6 days after Nietzsche's birth. He was like waiting all Tuesday for Jesus to come down, and then he never actually thought that a Jesus or a Messiah would be born, and that he'd have to live his life later. But a number of the Jews, the Aztecs, even this thing called Christadelphians believe that 1844 was a huge year of some kind of return. And that's Nietzsche's birth,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
On your channel,
Year of the Dragon, no less.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Oh, I was going to say, Ben, you say it's the age of information, but we haven't discovered the best kind of information we should be spreading. And what do you mean? What's the best kind of information for you? You want to give us some context to that quote?
I think, interesting, the kind of info I like is all strictly subjective. I mean, the news is all objective, kind of, this is what's going on. But I think during 2012, an astrology makes you really question your own potential. I mean, that's what Nietzsche was asking about, like, what kind of information do you like? And do you grow from it? What kind of information scares you,
Yeah,
I think
I'd want to press you the news is objective. That's the idea, that journalism is supposed to be objective, but it seems like subjective perspectivalism or subjectivism, that's permeated our culture throughout all of our media. Everyone, they watch news now, they pick their network based on the political views they already have, right?
Right.
So it's
that's
all...
the thing. about rationalism, like we had the age of rationality, so we wanted to throw away intuition. And I'm saying go back to intuition.
Right.
Yeah, news is subjective, but the actual topics aren't about cool things. It's just about a car wreck or politics.
Right.
Ben, what do you say to the position that claims that you're revert to intuition and subjectivism? They say that's more narcissistic. What do you say about that? Is that wrong? Is it accurate? Is it somewhat?
Also narcissistic. I'm not familiar. I've never been called that. I hear it all the time. Just don't know.
Narcissus was it's a Greek myth about this guy Narcissus who lost himself in his own reflection. So it just means like self-absorption or egoism, basically.
I'm totally a narcissist. I mean,
all right, that sounds bad.
Only I have no complaints with that. Then.
Right. Well, I mean, it's a criticism that is leveled at a lot of spiritual people and spiritual practitioners, because if you want to become enlightened, it is an intense focus inwardly on yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then there seems to be another side to spirituality, maybe that's
the interesting thing
And
about. I do believe in the self as much as Nietzsche would ever say the Superman. You have to test your own potential, but at the same time, if in 2012 we're sharing each other's thoughts, and I think of like something very negative next to a baby, I'm gonna have to think of that baby's aura. I'm gonna have to think of like, well, I can't have this aura around it because it's so sensitive. So I mean, we have to take other people in consideration, because also there's this guy named Emanuel Swedenborg, Aquarius rabbit like me, and like William Miller, which is tight. He believes he went to heaven. He said that in heaven, thoughts and feelings are shared and communal. They're no longer individual. And this is exactly what I think 2012 will be.
interesting.
Okay, Ben, what do you think about someone who has taken this spiritual approach, we'll call it spiritual, in the context of a detaching type of spiritual, more Zen or a Buddhist, if you want to call it that, and they detach from the thoughts. In other words, they become not so much owner of the thoughts as just a passive witness to them. So under this type of scenario with the baby, this person's not taking ownership of them, just allowing them to be, and then kind of resting like that. Would that be someone unallowed under your philosophy, or is that an okay kind of way? This detached kind of byproduct that they might become seems to permeate a peaceful nature. Would that be okay? I want to know your thoughts on this detachment type of spirituality.
Interesting. We should be detached. It's a hard question.
Go ahead.
McKenna talks about he tried to meditate, but it just wasn't as fulfilling and fruitful as an actual shamanistic herbal substance. I mean, I think being detached from your thoughts is a form of actually opening your eyes to reality. But I think we have to still have an anchor in on ourselves, and I am somewhat of a Buddhist. We have to let go of our ego. But then I go back to Nietzsche, and then I think the will to power, the ego is all we have. So
right.
Since we're in the age of Aquarius, it's ruled by Saturn and Uranus. So Uranus is all about revolutionary, breaking boundaries, and Saturn's about discipline. So that's the contradictory element of this age, I think.
Right.
I like the contradictory element.
Yeah. Well, now I was going to say that when John was talking about this sort of witnessing passive spirituality, that reminds, it's Buddhist, obviously, and I thought of Nietzsche's criticism of Buddhism, which is that it leaves out the will, it leaves out the desire to live and the ego's will to power, right? So from a Nietzschean perspective, it's the will that's the essential thing, not thoughts and whether you have them or you simply witness them, but it's the action that you take in the world that determines your spiritual enlightenment.
It's funny how we always talk about it. We see will, motion, movement, action. This other one, it's a polarity.
Yeah.
We classify these things in there and what they are not. They're opposites.
Mm-hmm.
Masculine, feminine, will, thought, reflection upon that, whatever you want to call that. More linear thinking, more emotional, more involved.
Right.
And then what happens when we start looking at this other perspective that tries to walk with them both, tries to walk with Saturn and Uranus, tries to walk with masculine and feminine? I mean, what happens when you become this
It's a coincidence of opposites.
Yeah, this I mean, is our culture still in logic? It's such like a no-no to have contradictions. What do we do about that? But that seems to be a more rigid, authoritative, disciplined, masculine type of polarity.
This would be a good way. This would be a good way to segue into Nietzsche a little bit.